Everybody, JK here from Animator Island. Welcome to today's live stream. It's kind of an impromptu one today. I'll be doing some gesture drawing, so I thought, hey, might as well do it live and invite everybody to join in. So if you're an artist and you're watching this live or even pre-recorded, feel free to open up your favorite art program or grab a sketchbook or even just some blank pieces of paper, and we can do some gesture drawing. So today's format, it's going to be kind of a shorter live stream, but we'll see how far along we get. But today's format, I'm going to be taking a look at a bunch of photographs, all photographs today, no art to copy from. And we're going to be doing each one 3 times. So I'm going to take the first photograph, I'm going to draw it 3 different times. I may try to draw it realistically each of the 3 times. I might start with realistically and then move on to something a little bit more exaggerated. I'm not exactly sure yet. We're going to see how it goes, and we'll go from there. But as I said, feel free to grab a sketchbook or open up a favorite drawing program that you have, and you're more than welcome to join in. So let's get to it. I will fire up the old iPad and we will get started. I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So if you want to ask any questions or make comments and things like that, you're more than welcome to. But I'm going to be focused down on the iPad a bunch. So if I miss what you're saying in the chat, forgive me. We'll try to get back around to it when I can. We got a lot of folks saying hello. Hello, Ethan and Dylan and 4chan, a lot of folks joining in. So hopefully you're also doing some gesture drawing with us today. If not, that's okay. We could just hang out and watch. All right. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 images here today. They are, generally speaking, a little bit more dynamic poses. The first 2 aren't super dynamic, but the other ones are pretty in action. I had a really interesting experience this past week where I realized that if you get photos of figure skating, there are actually some really cool photos and poses that kind of defy gravity. So it's a really interesting place to grab some poses from. But we're going to start up here, and as you see, I wrote myself a note 3 times each. I'm going to try and do 3 times each through, and let's grab our Tinderbox brush and we'll get started. So as I've said in some previous live stream, I typically use a modified version of the Samantha Youssef drawing method, which is that usually we start off with a sort of line of action or line of movement or main line. Now this main line is going to be relatively boring because it's very straight up and down. So I'll add a little bit of a curve to it. Actually, I'm going to probably, I'll just add a little bit of a curve to it. And then we can put in the head and some note where the tilt is on the head and shoulders and hips. Actually, shoulders, shoulders. So it's tricky because normally you do a line for the tilt of the shoulders, but this one of the shoulders is hidden. So in terms of contrapposto, I think that means that this other shoulder should be up. So, well, that's all right. We'll just make it down and cheat a little bit. Okay, so we've got our main bits that we need in order to make sure that if this photograph went away right now, well, other than the arms, we need the arms too. But if this photograph went away right now, I could probably finish this. I could finish this drawing, or at least get an idea of what was happening by filling in the details. So, Alex says hello. Hey, Alex. Here's a question from Alien Slug King. Oh, that's a cute pose. I was recently looking for poses with people using a staff. Where did you find it? So this one is specifically from Pinterest. I wasn't looking necessarily for a person with a staff, but that one popped up. I find that Google image searches do kind of somewhat bad job of finding really quality poses. Interestingly, like they'll throw a lot of stuff at you, but it's not very good at knowing what's a good pose and what's a bad pose, which I mean, as technology improves, they might figure that out. But I find much more quality content on Pinterest. So what I tend to do as a sort of evening regularly scheduled thing is I will open up Pinterest before bed and I will take 10-15 minutes and just kind of scroll through, click on things that I think would link me to other interesting things, and just kind of pull reference and pull ideas, and I'll just kind of wind my day down like that. So that's what this particular pose was from. And then by clicking on this pose on Pinterest, you end up with a lot of images where people have stabs or something that's similar to this. So that's a good way to, if you're looking for something in particular, go over on Pinterest, type in what you're looking for. And then when you find something that's even remotely close to what you're looking for, click on it, and then find something else that's close to what you're looking for in that next search and click on it. And Pinterest is very good at like understanding what you're trying to accomplish, and then it'll keep throwing more and more at you that's kind of in that general direction. It's also very dangerous because, you know, it's an infinite rabbit hole. So it helps to set a timer so that you don't sit there for the rest of your life and fall into that trap. But it is a really nice resource to have. So, okay. Interesting place on the foot. So as I was saying, this is all the information I would technically need in order to ignore this this photograph at this point, and I could just put everything else in, more or less. I mean, I'd want to put in probably the torso and the other solid forms, just so that I have an idea of directional. But I could probably guess decently well. But my tilts and things, it would help to have the rest of the bits in here. All right, so that would technically be as far as I would really need to go. Alex chimes in that ArtStation photo references are pretty decent. That is accurate. There are a lot of good references over at ArtStation. In the old days, DeviantArt was a great place to go for poses and things. There's still some really quality DeviantArt accounts that have that, but it's not quite as good as it used to be. There is next time I will try and remember to, or I can post a link. I found a random website that sells photo reference, and the quality is absurdly high. Like normally I would just go, you know, find free reference, but these images were worth, you know, the $5 or $6 that they wanted for a whole pack of them. So that was, you can search for like professionally done photo reference that's for sale. You know, spending $20 on a bunch of packs of photo reference that will improve your quality of art, that's totally worth spending. But, you know, free is also nice. Okay, so I'm going to shut up for a second and concentrate on what I'm doing here so that I'm not messing this up. Okay. And if anybody else has any other resources for you know, poses that people can pull from, Alex says Gumroad. Gumroad has some. Yep. Gumroad is tricky just because there's a lot on there, and there's not a lot of filter, I guess. Like, so there's some very good Gumroad stuff, and then there's some pretty low quality stuff, and you kind of have to sift through. I'm not saying don't sift through, but it's just something to keep in mind that when you're using Gumroad, because it's so easy for people to use, it's messed up that line. It's something that you just have to keep in mind that you're going to have to do some searching, because it's not going to just give you perfect things every time. Because, man, yeah, especially with books, it's one of the things. It's such a great resource for writers. I am also a writer along with the visual art stuff that I do, and it's a great resource for selling books and things. But as a result, because there's no filter and there's no quality setting, you can find people just with such nonsensical, bad work. Like, I hate to put it that way, but it is. It's very bad work, and so you just have to watch that sort of thing. Take things on Gumroad with a bit of a grain of salt, because, man, there's some weird stuff on there. There's a whole sect of people who are, how would you put it? They're like, it's like get rich quick schemes almost, and they tell you, oh, here's how you can make $1 million and be super popular and all this other stuff. And if you read some of those books, like, I was curious, so I got a couple, and I'm like, wow, it's like really bad advice. But people want to get rich quick, so I understand the draw. It's just they're scamming people is what it is, essentially. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm getting too much into the detail of the clothes here, so I need to stop, because that's not going to help anything. All right, so now I'm going to draw kind of a little bit. I'm a little off here, but I'm going to draw where this hand is currently. But as I do that, okay, sorry. I'll finish this up and then I will talk. Okay. Let me put in a little bit of shading just so that, see what's in front and what's in back and all that good stuff. Okay. All right, so what I was going to talk about for a second is, in this image, the pose is nice. We've got this nice twist to it, things like that. But this hand is just kind of coming up out of the chest here and creating this awful, awful tangent right here. You can see the hand just kind of continues down, and the wrist and the arm goes into the same line that defines this part of the shirt coming off the breast. And this is just not what you want if you're actually doing a pose. So what I've done here is I've kind of gone with the pose pretty close to what it is, in reality, according to the reference. But now I'm going to go back and do a second one that pushes it and takes away this awful, awful tangent, because I don't want that in there, and I wouldn't want to do that tangent if I'm turning this into a full illustration, or if I'm using it as a pose for animation and something like that. So this is kind of my starting point. Before we do that, I do want to kind of analyze a little bit to see, how I did. This is a really good exercise to do when you're doing gesture drawings. Take a minute, look back at it, see what worked, what didn't, where you went right, where you maybe went wrong. I noticed that I really messed up the pelvis in the beginning, and then I tried to kind of cheat it back to where it should have been. That wasn't a great idea, because I should have just gone back and redone some things. So that's something I'm going to have to look at when I do my next version. The hair is kind of overtaking things to the point where it's hard to tell certain proportions there, but I think that, like, this neck is not quite long enough. I think we needed to move the head up a little bit more. If I had to guess, I would say that I was just off a little bit on the head. It's not terrible, and it's not like, you know, breaking the drawing or anything, but it's just something that I need to keep in mind because it's not quite right. And then if I look at this space and this kind of shape here, right, and then I look at this shape and this space here, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? And what I can see from just doing that is that I've put the calf muscle way too high compared to the reference. So that should have come down further because this line here is much longer than this line. And in mine, it's almost the opposite. So that's something that I can look at. Looking at negative space is a really nice way to kind of get an idea of, did I do this right? Did I screw something up? Stuff like that. Same goes for up here. Like, it's tricky again because the hair is a little bit in the way, but if we look at this shape, and I'll move it over real quick. If we look at that shape, right, that's the shape from the original, and then mine is kind of similar, right, but it's not quite the same. There's some, it doesn't quite have the same flow and that sort of thing. So that's just something that I need to look at and keep in mind. All right, so we're gonna do this same pose a second time. Come on there, iPad. Okay, sorry about the screen shake. Just trying to erase with 3 fingers. So we're gonna do this pose a second time. And this time I'm gonna push some things. I'm gonna move some stuff around. I'm gonna try and get a little bit, right now, the original is very charming, but my version is a little flat and lifeless. So I'm gonna try and get some more life into it in this next one. And to do that, I'm gonna push the main line a little bit, and I'm not gonna take it directly in the center of the figure. I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of get a little more movement into the whole pose. So at this point now, I'm using this as strictly reference as opposed to before, where I was kind of doing it more as a study, right? I'm still using it as reference because it's not exactly a 1-1, but the first pose here, I was doing more as a study of what was, and then in this one, I'm going to try and get more of the feel in there. I'm going to try and get more of the life, and I'm going to be way more loose and way more just playful with it in a sense. Like, I'm just going to have some fun with it and see if I can get something that's more interesting than what I had previously. And I don't know if I'll be successful or whatever, but we're going to give it a whirl. And that means that I can move stuff around and I can just kind of play with things, and we'll see what happens. And it won't be accurate, quote unquote, this time, because I'm doing this differently than I was the first time. So as you can see, I've tilted the head more. I'm trying to get a little bit more flowing lines in as opposed to what I did previously. And let's get so here I can tell that I'm off on my proportions, right? And because we're working digitally, I don't have to start over. I could just go in and fix what I was broken. So we're going to tweak some things a little bit to get that back into where it needs to be. This bottom part of the legs is off, so I'll bring that down a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because I mean, it's a gesture drawing, and the whole point of this is to stay loose and to enjoy the experience a little bit, and then to have something at the end that you can have for your mental library, or even, you know, what I call a takeaway sheet, which I can show you later. I have pages of just gesture drawings that I've copied over to one file. That way I can go in and just copy what I've already done as a reference. I have like my own personal reference file, but it's not the photographs that I'm keeping. It's the drawings that I did from those photographs. So that way, when I go back to do a drawing from one of these poses, I'm now referring to a reference, essentially. Like I'm referring to a reference of a reference almost. And so I'm getting farther away from the original, and it becomes a little more my own each time I do it, which I find really enjoyable in a sense, because it's like, this is getting closer to me instead of just the photograph that it started from. So as I said, in this last one, there's this awful tangent with the wrist and the breast, and it's just not working for me. So I'm going to try and get that arm out a little ways. So even though you wouldn't see the upper arm in the back here, I'm going to draw it in, and then I'm going to put in the elbow kind of here, and we're going to bring the arm out a little bit, and then I can go ahead and put in the hand. But this way, we've kind of broken that tangent a little bit, and then I can go in and erase this out, because we don't need that. But now that tangent is kind of gone, and we can see what's happening a little bit more. Now I don't have, you know, exact reference for this arm, which means I have to use what I already know about anatomy to kind of fudge it. Move this up a little bit. Maybe I could tilt this up instead of down. That might be nice. I don't know. But anyway, so we've taken away that tangent a little bit. I'd still have to play with it, because this is off. Like, this is still off, but it's hopefully it gives you an idea of what I mean by trying to get rid of that tangent. You know, this is not what's in the actual reference, but it is what I'd want to do if I was trying to do a slightly better pose that didn't have the same problem that this first pose has, which is that tangent. All right, cool beans. So this is kind of my second attempt. And there are aspects of it that I like, and then there are aspects of it that I think were more successful in the previous one. But I feel like, and I would imagine most people would agree, that the second one is more dynamic. It's more, it has a little bit more appeal. It's more visually, it's pushed, and the forms feel more dimensional, things like that. Alex wants to know, do you typically have a specific time limit for each of these? So there are two ways that you can kind of do gesture drawings. One is with a strict time limit. And yes, so there are times when I will set timers for 30 seconds or a minute. 30 seconds is really rough. You could do it, and the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it gets, but that's not a lot of time. I'll do this line. Oh, my 30 seconds are up. So I do occasionally will do that. But in this instance, because I'm taking these and I'm doing some analysis while I'm drawing, I'm pushing things, I'm playing with things, this is outside of the what I would time. And the reason for that is because I want to allow myself time to explore and time to think. the benefit of doing gesture drawing that's timed is that it makes your brain like make decisions. And it's like, no, you don't have time to think about this. You need to put down lines, put it down. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, oh well. But it trains your observation. Timed gesture drawings trains your observation. Well, both of them do, but it trains it in a different way because it has to be immediate. Like you need to make snap decisions when you're timing your gesture drawings. And so what I'm not doing that here because I want to give it a little more room to develop. I want to think about it more. I want to say, oh, what do I want it this way? Do I want it that way? How would I do this differently? That sort of thing. And so these aren't going to be timed. But if you're interested, we could do a future session where we have the timer on the screen and we're just seeing how it goes, because that could be really helpful. Typically, if you're going to do that, I recommend some 30-second poses, and then some minute-long poses, and then some 2-minute-long poses. So maybe you do like 10:30, and then 5-minute, and then 5 2-minute. And that's not a ton of time overall, but it will ramp you up into that. Suddenly, when you're doing a 2-minute drawing, after you've done a bunch of 30-second drawings, you'll feel like it's a million years. Like it just feels like, oh, I have all this time in the world. And then you can just kind of stay loose, but still relax. And it's helpful, in my opinion. Okay, so this is my second attempt. I'm going to do 3. Just a little bit of a personal thing here. I don't want to do the third one. I like the second one, and so my brain is like, why bother doing another? You did that pretty well. Is it going to get better? No, the next one's probably going to be worse, so just move on. But I'm going to ignore that little voice because I said I was going to do 3, so I'm going to do 3. But that's what's kind of yelling in my head right now, like, don't do another one. It's gonna turn out worse. But that's okay. We're gonna do it anyway. One thing I'll say is I kind of like the feet on this first one a little bit better than the second one, so I might try and get that a little closer. Like, I like that they're kind of unified in a sense, whereas this one feels a little less unified. So okay. So with that in mind, I'm going to do a third one here. Do I want to look at the reference photo or do I want to look at what I've already done? That's the question. I think I'm going to, that's tricky. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to look at the reference photo, not what I've already done. So I'm going to move those over and just kind of ignore them for a minute, but I will label this 1, 2, and then 3. That way I know that I didn't start with the third one. And for this last one, I'm going to just kind of, I'm going to try and push it even further by using the proportions that we went over a long time ago in one of the other live streams on character proportions. If you didn't get a chance to watch that live stream, I will post a link in the recording of this one. But that one, I determined my kind of ideal default female character proportions. I went into a great deal more detail on it during that live stream, but I'm going to try and use those character proportions on this pose, which means that I'm, in a sense, I'm only taking the basic principles and ideas from this photograph. Now I am just going to play with the shapes that I want to use and that sort of thing. Before I jump into that, I will answer Blaze's question. Blaze says, how to draw anatomy using perspective view? Okay, do you mean how do you like draw anatomy correctly regardless of the perspective? Like if you wanted to do like an extreme bird's eye view, or if you wanted to twist perspective, I think that's what you're asking. What I would say there is, first, you need to know anatomy, and second, you need to know perspective, right? I will detour for just a second, but if you have a cylinder, because we're going to start very basic. If you have a cylinder, right, something like this is the top plane, and then we have our sides and our bottom, So if you have a cylinder like this, right, and you want to put it in some crazy perspective, you can go ahead and draw in your perspective grids and things like that. But once you get kind of decent at it, you can go ahead and just kind of make it up a little bit, I guess. You can kind of, you intrinsically start to get an idea of what you would have if you drew it in perspective. It won't be perfect. Like, this is not going to be a perfect representation of the cylinder in an extreme perspective, right? But it's going to be, you know, decently close. But you have to kind of work on your perspective before you can get to the point where you just do it. But so this would just be kind of taking the first cylinder here, and then using like almost a wide angle fisheye lens kind of thing, looking sort of down and then kind of pulled back so that there's like this extreme perspective coming down, and the bottom of it is pretty far away. This is the exact same principle you would use for anatomy, except anatomy is much more complicated than a cylinder. That's why a lot of people will recommend that you look for simple shapes, you know, base forms and shapes, and then you can twist those much more easily than you can twist, say, you know, the trapezius muscle or the bicep or whatever. And then you can just keep kind of building on top. So if you pretended, for example, that this cylinder was the arm, you could start to put over it the muscles that that come on the arm, like that all come to this point. You could start to have the muscles, and then when you're putting it into an extreme perspective, it's going to still be the same principle. You're going to have it go into the same place, and I sure picked a hard one. But basically, you're going to build out the simple form into a more complex form. And the better you know your perspective and the better you know your anatomy, the easier it's going to get. It's never probably going to be super easy, but it'll at least be easier. So I hope that helps and answers it a little bit. If not, let me know what exactly you meant, and I will try and comment on that. All right, there's one more question in the chat, but I'm going to do this real quick, and then I will get to your question, Nozomi. Okay, let me do this one first. Okay, so I'm going to use this as a reference, and I'm going to put it into the proportions that I determined for the characters that I want to do. All right, so I'm going to put in this sort of line, and then we're going to put a relatively small upper torso, and then medium size, I suppose. Put in pelvis, and then this is going to come out here to there, and then a knee, and get the bottom in. And then I like these feet, so I'm going to kind of try and copy what I did for these feet. And I can tell that my proportions are slightly off, so we're going to go ahead and fix that, because, hey, we got the technology, we might as well. So I'll put it to there, which I think is a little bit better. And then, so we have this here. Come back around this leg. This is overlapping, and this overlaps instead. And I'm going to have to move some stuff around, but that's okay. Let's get rid of this foot for a second and finish up the front one. Okay, so this front leg is looking like what I want it to. And now we can kind of fix the back one to adjust to where we want it to be. Okay, made the gluteus maximus way too big, but that's okay. Can fix it. And come up here. And then this kind of comes down into there and then stretches. And I kind of liked the angle we had here. All right, so we're coming along. And then so the pole is going up again. So that's just where it ended up. So I'm gonna have to maybe get the arm out here a little. That's not bad. Not bad. I don't think. Yeah, cool beans. All right, so this is it pushed, and now I have to fix the head because it's off. But that's okay. We can always move stuff around and change some things. But we got to get room for that neck in there and then get the head going. And I kind of liked it back, I think. Back. I don't know. Yeah, kind of nice. Actually, I like where I had it in that other one better. So there we go. Cool beans. So there we go. We've kind of taken it and pushed it, and we've gotten this sort of third iteration of what we had. The arm has really gone behind this hip here significantly, which I kind of enjoy. It's got this nice twist to it, and so I think that it works pretty well. I'm going to put in some light shading and shadow with just really subtly. I enjoy this part of the process, I guess you could say. So like normally I'm not sure that this is really necessary, but I do enjoy it. So I put in the shading because it's kind of fun for me. Would I do that there? Maybe. I think it just kind of finishes off the piece nicely. Is it necessary? No, it's not really necessary, but I do it anyway. Okay. Cool beans. So there we go. We've got our third attempt, and you can see that each of these is, it's slightly different. Hopefully you could tell that it's the same pose in each, but it's each one has a unique charm to it, a different feel, a different way of explaining the same idea in a sense. And we've made just subtle tweaks, but through it, now if I was going to go back and try and do this pose without any reference whatsoever, it started to get ingrained into my head because I have done it 3 times now. And that's one of the benefits to this 3-time idea. It really allows you to incorporate and ingrain whatever it is that you're drawing. It's not just like, okay, there's that one, I'm going to move on to the next. Okay, there's that one, I'll move on to the next. It helps you to understand the pose better. It helps you understand the story that you're trying to tell and that sort of thing. Okay, a couple things in the chat, so let's go over them. Nozomi says, do you need to know about the skull to draw a face effectively? That's a really interesting question. Do you need to know about the skull to draw a face effectively? Need is a strong word, so I would say no. You do not need to know about the skull to draw the face effectively. Does it help? Yes, it definitely helps. Would I recommend it? Absolutely, I would recommend it, because the more you know the real thing, the more you know the foundations and the core and the fundamentals, the easier, or not even easier, but the better quality you're probably going to be able to have. But do you need to know it? No. Like, would I I wouldn't draw the skull and then put the face over top of it at this point in my career. I might have done that as an exercise in the past, but every drawing I do, I wouldn't first draw the skull and then draw a face. Like I would just jump into drawing the face because I've kind of absorbed that information for so long. So the answer to your question is yes. No, you don't need to know, but yes, you should know. And it really helps. It will really help you. It's worth putting in the effort, putting in the time. And Alex agrees, says, yeah, kind of. It helps for structure and perspective angles. Agreed. Remember we talked about the simple shapes and rotating simple shapes? It's going to be way easier for you to rotate a simple skull in perspective and in dimension than it will be a whole face. And then you can go ahead and put the features on top and you'll know where they belong. But yeah, so for perspective, it really does help, that sort of thing. And then Blay asks, I have one more question, how to learn perspective as an animator. Okay, so I don't think I have the book right next to me. I do not. I have a pretty great book that I've been enjoying reading. Sorry, I just knocked over my pile of books. If you give me 1 second, I might have it across the room. Is there a book over there? No. Never mind. We'll find it another time. I bet I know where it is in the library, but I'm not going to go track it down. There are some really good books out there. There are really good tutorials online and things like that. What I would tell you is there's kind of two facets to this. First, as an animator, you have a lot of drawings to make, right? Like you have a lot of drawings to make. So it's really important that you know your perspective, but also you're probably not going to have enough time to sit there and do everything perfectly in perspective. So as an animator, you're going to cheat some of the time. Like you're going to make stuff up, and as long as it works, it's going to be okay. But having said that, if you don't have the fundamentals and the foundation of perspective well, because you find it boring and you don't want to do it, or at least that's mine, it's going to harm your work in the long term. So it's better to just learn perspective well and then fudge stuff after you've learned it well. Because as an animator, again, you're not going to have time to just do every drawing that you do in perfect perspective. You're going to need to rely on some intuition in order to do it fast enough to succeed as an animator. So learn perspective well, the right way, and then use that knowledge to fake it some of the time in animation. That would be my suggestion. But I will say this, because I know that you're out there, young me. This is what I would hear of that. I would hear, oh, you don't really need to learn perspective. No, you do. Sorry. You do need to learn perspective. And then you go ahead and play around with it and fudge it. But don't try and jump straight to that. And then finally, Eamon says, the third one is the most appealing. Well, thank you. I think so too. I like aspects of each of them in certain ways. I think the first one is definitely the stiffest and the most lifeless. And I mean, it's probably the most accurate, but it doesn't do anything for me. Like I don't enjoy that drawing. The second one I enjoy looking at, and the third one I think came around and worked out pretty well. Okay, so we are 46 minutes in, and I only did one of these images. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to call it there for today, and then maybe we can come back tomorrow or the next day and do some more. I'll move down to the second one. That took way longer than I expected, just because I was really thinking about each one. Normally, I would have probably given maybe 3 to 5 minutes for each of these, but I went and really thought about it and really played with some things. So if I didn't have an appointment at 3 o'clock, I would totally keep going, but we do. So I have to get to that. I do hope that you gained something from this. I hope that you had an opportunity to draw. If you didn't, I highly recommend that you check out the recording of this video after the fact and grab a sketchbook and do some drawing. Because honestly, nothing is going to improve your work better than you practicing. And I know that that's hard and you wish that you could just absorb it by watching it in video form, but you really do need to do the drawing. So definitely give it a shot if you'd like to. If you enjoyed this, stay tuned because we're going to have more gesture drawing in the future. I think that this is really helpful for everybody, including me, because then it makes me do it. So I will try and pop back on either tomorrow or Friday, and we'll do another drawing session. We'll move on to this photograph, which has a lot of really nice angles and things to it. So I'm enjoying, I'm excited to get to that one. All right. Alien Slug King will end on this comment. Thanks for making this. For some reason, it made my day. Well, I'm glad, Alien Slug King. I'm glad. It's a joy to do this. I'm finding my passion in it again, especially by explaining it and teaching it and analyzing it and exploring and playing. So I'm enjoying it too. It's making my day, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And so that's it for today, everybody. I thank you for stopping by. Check out other live streams over Animator Island TV, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye.